Welcome, friends, to another episode of the Word Cloud Tarot Show. It's the 18th of January, a Monday, and later on this week, on Wednesday, the new president will be sworn in the United States. So I thought we'd do a little reading today on what's the presidential inauguration going to be like. We will be using the Word Cloud Tarot deck. This is a deck I designed myself to be the easiest deck to read in all of Tarotdom. All of the cards have the meanings of the cards written on them, and so they don't have to be looked up in books, and you don't have to memorize them, and the person who you're reading with can read that you're actually reading the cards rather than just making it up. Makes them very transparent. Now, presidential inauguration will be an interesting one. Everyone's looking forward to it. There's going to be a lot fewer people there than usual because of restrictions, because of the virus, of course. You can't have hundreds of thousands of people all gathering to watch one man talk and swear. Though I don't think he like F's and blinds. He just gets sworn in. President Trump has said he's not going to go. He probably watch it on telly, I expect. As will most of the other people. There's going to be a TV show. Tom Hanks is in it. We're going to do a reading to find out more. We're going to have a threads reading, which has internal, external and internal influences. It's got a best hope and a history, waning influences, waxing influences, us now today doing the reading, the obstacles to be overcome, and finally the outcome. So let's start. We'll start with the external influences. The external influences today is the Six of Swords. Six of Swords is known as science. There's been a lot of science going on the lead up to this particular inauguration, of course, with all the figuring out whether you can have an inauguration inside a pandemic. And of course, vaccines have been coming up lately too. Internal influences. We have here another swords card. This time it's the Six of Swords. No, the Four of Swords. The Four of Swords is known as truce. And of course, there has been a truce of sorts between Biden and Trump. Trump has eventually accepted that he will not be the new president, or so it would seem. Let's find out what happens on the day. The best hope of what might happen on the day is yet another swords card. This time, the 13th sword card. The 13th sword card is the Queen. And of course, the best hope is for some sort of inauguration, even if it's not strictly a royal inauguration. The Queen represents a person who's diligent and has lots of literate, salaried ideas. Simplicity is a word mentioned on the cards there, and arithmetic. We'll see what she might mean later. The history of the situation until now, we have seen, finally it's not a sword, the 11th of Cups. That's the Page of Cups. Now the Page of Cups represents resourcefulness, someone who's well-spoken perhaps, eloquence. I'm not sure that describes either of the presidential candidates really. But that's the history of the situation. Perhaps more will become clear when we've got more cards on the spread. Here's an influence that was waning. The Eight of Wands. Swiftness. Swiftness is about acceleration, of course, and possibilities and initiatives and frankness and networking. In a position as a waning influence, it means something is becoming less important as things goes on. So perhaps we'll be able to remove some of the dreadfulness after the date. This card here represents waxing influences. They're becoming more important, and that's the 9th trump card, the hermit. Hermit represents discretion and tranquility, and of course staying at home during a pandemic, all those kinds of things. Brings us to the situation here now as we do the reading. More swords, this time the 9 of swords represents cruelty. Other things it represents include deception or dejection or sleepiness, hopelessness, perhaps infidelity or desperation. Is the desperation in my voice showing? Well, we'll see. Obstacles, there are always obstacles to be overcome, and in this occasion the obstacles are represented by the 1st of wands, which is of course the ace of wands. It represents a birth of new will and new impetus, so this is probably representing the actual new presidency. The outcome then perhaps won't be the outcome of the inauguration itself, but of the presidency itself, and that is the 10 of trumps, which might indicate it's all going to come down to luck in the end. So that gives us our overall spread. We'll spend a little while looking at it and see what kind of summary we might be able to have. Let's see. Yes, well, what we've got here, it seems to be basically a history of democracy. We have a hope for all these thoughtful and courageous and well-spoken leaders. And we use science, especially the science of arithmetic and voting, to force our internally battling leaders into a truce, where they must work together instead of bringing the whole country down into a fight. Now, this makes all of the swiftness things less important. It means that the dreadfulness is less important and the directness is less important. And instead, it makes the hermit skills more important. Things like enlightenment and discretion and courage. So that has historically given us some well-spoken and resourceful leaders in America. At the moment, though, we've had quite a cruel leader for the last few years. I think it's quite debilitating and deception. Certainly, there's been a lot of that. I don't think anyone would deny. But his obstacle is this new political force, this new presidency, the new possibility, new ideas, new importance that will be replacing the cruelty at the next on Wednesday, the inauguration. However, the outcome will, of course, be the old wheel of fortune. Sometimes the Democrats are on top, sometimes the Republicans are on top. The Democrats are on top this time, perhaps, but the wheel of fortune will continue to turn. And in the end, will anything really change? Well, that's what the tarot cards think. What do you think? Do you think there'll be anything good in the election and in Inauguration Day? Will it all go more or less smoothly as the whole history of democracy has done? That's it for today. You can find the tarot deck and all my old readings, and you can subscribe at thewordcloudtarot.com. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time.